How does a background in warehousing, journalism and football give you the edge when building digital brands? You wouldn't think a guy who spent 7 years stacking boxes in a warehouse would end up supporting a business building websites for high growth businesses. But that's exactly what Mark Tuxford's done. He's got one of those stories that's easy to overlook unless you actually sit down and ask him how he got there. From grafting in logistics to studying journalism and reporting on football, to now running strategy at MWB, making websites better, and being host of People Behind Brands podcast. Mark's journey is a proper reminder that most great marketers don't start in marketing. They start with people, with trying to make things work, and somewhere along the way, they got really good at letting others do the same, edit. And somewhere along the way, they got really good at helping others do the same. Mark, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. Pleasure to be here.
It's been a long time coming. We've known each other for quite some time now, and we've done a bit of a podcast swap. So I've been on the People Behind Brands podcast. Thank you very much for having me on there. It was incredible fun, and I really loved the questions that you had thought out for me. It was probably one of the deepest podcast interviews I've ever done. So I'm hoping to be able to return the favour for you today. I'm gonna rewind back to your days in warehousing, because we got a bit of a crossover there. I worked in retail for 15 years, and during that stint I did my fair share in logistics and warehousing. So you did 7 years working in warehouse. Why did you end up in the warehousing industry in the first place? What got you there?
It's a tale of that I was never very good at school. I don't know whether it was just I wasn't particularly academic, but certainly the effort wasn't there. I used to get easily distracted and had more fun pissing about rather than actually learning and obviously taking in the education. I look back on it a little bit with some tinge of regret there, because ultimately you don't realise how important school is until you obviously leave it, really. And my parents always used to say to me that the best days of your life are always at school, because there's no real responsibility. You know, you're just learning and absorbing that information. But yeah, I think it was a mix of different things why school didn't always go to plan for me. I liked being the class clown, and ultimately I left school without really any qualifications and had to go and find a job that I think really at that stage, I left school at 16, 17, and I was going into job interviews and job aspects that interested me. But obviously quickly realised that if I didn't have the grades, if I didn't have the qualification, then I wasn't really going to get those jobs. I had to start at square one a little bit, and then went into working for a company called CPETS. So my role was essentially to pick and pack boxes, orders, internet orders, speaking to customers sometimes. And it was a case of that I really enjoyed it, because I was doing a lot of kind of like manual labour type work. And at that time it really suited me, because I had a purpose, you know, and it's not the be all and end all, but ultimately for me it was a purpose. I was earning money, and at that time that money went on going out and having a good time with your friends and buying things like clothes and whatever else and going to watch the football. So for me, that was really what I wanted to do. And then I suppose 4 or 5 years into it, I was still really enjoying it, but I sat there and thought, what more can I actually do with my life? You see all your friends going off and getting, you know, nice jobs, good jobs, getting paid well and all that sort of stuff. And for me, I thought maybe I want a little bit of that, rather than just packing boxes all the time. So that's when I then, you know, branched out and, you know, decided that I wanted to do sports journalism. Went to university, and I've been doing a little bit of that, so I got my feet in there in a sense. But
So just before we go into the sports journalism though, I wonder, so as a fellow child of the 80s/90s, right? Yeah. ADHD and neurodiversity wasn't something you could choose to select in the drop-down list back then. Yeah. And I very much definitely am in that box. And so much of what I hated about school, now I can explain. Do you think that has some part in your reluctance to be academic?
I don't know. For me, I don't think I've got, not something wrong with me, but I haven't got any kind of neurodivergent traits, I don't think. It depends who you speak to. But I think ultimately it was just that the effort wasn't there. And there was times in my life at that point where my parents split up, quite a key time in my education. Don't get me wrong, I was still pissing about before that, but the point being was that when it came to choosing your options and what sort of subjects you wanted to learn about, that sort of time really rocked me, I think. And I went off the rails a little bit as a kind of a sort of wide teenager. And I suppose that sort of led me into Just wanted to just get out of school and going into working in a manual labour type job, which, again, as I say, I really enjoyed, and then moved on to different things.
I do think that not everybody is academically talented as well.
Yeah.
Right? And I think to a certain extent, the academia almost comes with age and experience to those people that do go the manual labour route. And I always found that I really enjoyed the physical side of retail, right? Like, I might have moaned about how I felt a couple of days later and having to get up early and all those sorts of things, but there was something about that physical exertion that just, it was satisfying because it just burned my energy away, kept me fit, and actually the banter that you had in that environment was actually really good as well.
That's the thing. I think you don't realise unless you work in that type of environment already that you make friends for life. One of my best mates that I used to work with, he was one of my groomsmen at my recent wedding last year. So for me, it was, again, going back to that sort of people aspect where you're getting to know people all the time, you have a laugh. Ultimately, you're earning a pound note, but you're getting like good products out to customers and stuff like that. So I was packaging sort of fish tanks and right through to little things like dog leads and things like that. And ultimately, you're giving something to probably a family, an individual, that their pet is their number one priority. Like we saw so much money being spent on dogs and cats and fish and whatever else. And at that time, I didn't have pets, and I thought, I just don't know how you're spending all that money on pets and stuff like that, because I didn't really get it at the time. But ultimately, these people, pets are part of their family. So, yeah, it's quite nice, really.
And yeah, you mentioned that you got into sports journalism, but that feels like a huge leap from where you were to where you were going. What was the spark for that? I know you're into football. We can talk that a little bit, but there's a huge step between sports journalism and where you were. Where did that come from?
Yeah, I think it really came from, as I say earlier, it was more about I think I got into a bit of a rut of just CPETs at the warehouse job I was at, and it was a case of that while I still enjoyed the banter and the people that I worked with, it was more about that, what more can I do with my life? How can I challenge myself? And I think the challenge came from, in a sense, that I knew I didn't have any grades when I left school. I knew really that warehouse jobs were probably the only jobs I was ever going to get. And it was a case where I thought, let's go for a bit of challenge here then. Let's try and flip the plates a bit and go for something that I probably knew I was never ever going to get, because you need grades to go to university, right? So I managed to wing it a little bit and get into university and do some sort of like extra sort of courses and stuff like that in my spare time. A little bit of that was that I would go to football matches on a Saturday and just go to, general like non-league, not great football at all, real sort of bottom of the pyramid sort of stuff. And I got in contact with a local newspaper and just said, look, I'll cover some of your matches. I don't want paying for it. It's just a case of that I just like some experience. So I'd do that. I went along to the first one. He taught me how to do format of a match report, and I sent it over, and he was like, that's really good. We'll get you doing some more for us. So I used to do it probably every Saturday, every Sunday type stuff, and this is sort of Saturday, Sunday league type football. And I got to a point where I was doing that on a regular basis, still not being paid, but it was great education. And then that built up my portfolio to then go to universities and say, look, I do have a talent in the sense of that I can write. It's a passion of mine, so I know what I'm talking about. And I took that to a university, studied there, then graduated, and then got paid gigs after that. So then I was doing bits and pieces for Talksport, BBC Sport, the football non-league paper. So lots of different sort of freelance gigs I was getting. And then that opened me up to getting football-based podcasts. I'm part of a podcast called Talking Town, where we talk about Ipswich a lot. And it just got me back to a passion. It's something that I felt really passionate about, and it became effortless. And it's in a sense that, for me, again, school wasn't great and there was no grades, but I almost taught myself how to write in a football way by watching Sky Sports News religiously. And picking up sort of certain terms, certain words and all that sort of stuff. And the more you learn about that, and that was my learning, and the more you learn, the more you can develop it into your own sort of format and how you do it. So, yeah, that's how I got into, that's from warehouse stuff into sports journalism.
And I guess that the sports journalism boils down to telling a miniature story, right?
It does, yeah.
And it's both a story in itself and the part of the wide of the story as well. Like the journey that club or the team's on, or the league is on. And I think a lot of non-football people don't really see that. I can understand why. Football's not for everyone, but I know it's something that we share a huge passion in. Yeah. Although if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I'd probably given you a different answer. I'd fallen by the wayside of football. I still cared about it, but I'm nowhere near as passionate as I am now. And I've found that because of my son. and because of the tribe that I'm in. And I think that's a big part of it as well, right? It's that tribal collective.
Yeah, it's exactly that. I think for me, I've got a season ticket at Portman Road at Ipswich, and it feels like a family. And I think a lot of why I believe that football clubs choose you, right? And a lot of people will ask me, why do I support Ipswich? And I can't really tell you why I support Ipswich other than the first ever game I watched. We happened to get promoted in 2000, and I followed it ever since then. But before that, I didn't come from a football family. I didn't come from a background where my dad was taking me to the football or anything like that. It was, again, just self-taught, self-love and all that sort of stuff. And it was in my family at the time. I then actually just put all of my love and sort of interest into Ipswich and created my own sort of friends and family through that. And these people I still go to football with now. So for me, it's a case of that it is a tribal thing and you feel a part of something and it's competitive. There's a lot of love there. We talk about like old-fashioned sort of love and stuff like that, and blokes don't really give people hugs and all that sort of stuff and cry and all that sort of stuff outside of football. But when you're in the football and you're watching that game, emotions are running high. Like I'm hugging people that I don't even know. It's a case of that sort of thing. I think is a beautiful thing and it brings people together.
And I think with that in mind, I can kind of see the path that you went on from sports journalism to then be where you are now. Yeah. But I'm curious, what edged you away from staying in sports journalism entirely? Like, obviously, you've got one foot in the camp still, but
I think
why NWB?
Yeah, so I still write on the odd occasion. So I was doing it every weekend at one point, but then having sort of other commitments and having a wife, quite frankly, you have your own sort of commitments with her and stuff like that. So I was pulled away a little bit from that, and I think a lot of it probably came down to financial sort of things where if you really want to go for like a top job in football, people have already got them. I probably am not good enough to get to that level. Probably need some more qualifications and stuff like that. But ultimately, the sports journalism got me into a field of doing digital marketing, and it was storytelling, digital marketing. So I started off working at an agency where I'd just be doing blogs, so SEO type blogs really. And it was a case that they wanted someone that wasn't just going to churn out just SEO content. They wanted someone to put a story behind it. So working for types of clients and generally having that sort of storytelling mantra about it. And I had some freelance clients before I joined this particular agency. And that built that sort of portfolio to get me that role, as well as my sort of sports journalism stuff. But yeah, I got into digital marketing, started off blog writing, and then it was a case of it was just moving on to the next thing, for me. And then got into a little bit more sort of social media type content, but then found myself thinking, I always don't really want to be typing for the rest of my life. I want to go out and get stuff and be a bit more ambitious. So I then got the opportunity working in a different agency I was still doing the content side of things, but then they wanted me to go out and do business development and sales opportunities and stuff like that. And I feel like I've always had a bit of the gift of the gab a little bit, but at the same time, it was almost putting it into a professional setting and having a product that you can feel passionate about. Because I always feel that if you're going to sell something, you need to one, know about it, but two, passionate about it. And for me, it was always that case of that I knew a little bit more about digital marketing, knew how to storytell, knew how to speak to people through asking the right questions, going back to my journalism background. They always say it's a 5 Ys and the 1 H. So, that sort of stuff for me is what it all came down to. And I really enjoy both sides of it. But for me now, I'm very much a case of that I will go out and speak to people and just help them. It's not a case of that I want to sell to you. It's that I will listen to your problem and I'll provide a solution for you.
And I guess that's the reason why you then ventured into people behind brands, right? That's your one foot in your personal passion as well as one foot into what accelerates the business as well, right?
Exactly, yeah. And People Behind Brands is a podcast about exploring people's life lessons from the world of business. And again, people don't always get the opportunity to have that time to sit down and speak with someone and talk about themselves. There's podcasts out there like Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. Great podcast. It's probably modelled on that, my one, but it's more a case of that he's having a lot of famous people going on there. All great, because obviously you tune in because you like that person. But at the same time, where are the people that are working class backgrounds, middle class, whatever it might be, just normal people that have got businesses, that have had struggles, hardships, getting to where they are. But then you look on LinkedIn or Instagram and it's, I bought a Ferrari today, I'm having great success, I've hired X, Y and Z. That's not how you got there. That's a kind of a profit of what you're doing. And good luck to those people, don't get me wrong. But what I'm interested in is how you built that business, how you built yourself. So that's what the podcast is all about for me. And it aligns with all the things that I've done, really. So I've come from a working class background in terms of working in a warehouse. I've then gone on to learn how to storytell through digital marketing and sports journalism, stuff like that. And then having a podcast to promote that, using my digital marketing skills again, but also using my journalism skills to get the answers that I need to make a good episode, and obviously then promote them further as well, because ultimately this is what it's all about. It's promoting somebody behind their business. It's people behind their brand.
So what would you say are the parallels between where you've come with the football world and the football journalism and promoting brands and audience engagement for other businesses then? Like, how do you utilise that to draw on your knowledge to make that successful for them?
Special shout out in today's episode for our charity partners, ADHD Liberty, led by Sarah Templeton, who are part of the fight to prevent the school to prison pipeline for ADHD and neurodiverse individuals. If you'd like to find out more, you can visit them. The show links are in the notes below, and I would encourage you to go along and have a look and educate yourself on their fight. It's an incredibly important cause, and we're super proud to have them as charity partners for the MarketPulse Frozen Pioneers podcast. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your episode.
Yeah, I think, again, it's being part of a team. What we do at MWB is a case of that we're not just any other agency, a website agency or a digital agency. We're a website performance agency. So we're always looking at your performance, and there has to be a team that is looking after that performance side, but also working with that existing team, a part of their business, that marketing manager, that business owner, whatever it might be. And that's the kind of sort of team aspects that I like with that. And I suppose, it's looking at the whole ethos of what a team is, especially if you compare it to a parallel of a football, is that you will have a great team, you'll have team players. You might have the odd star player and stuff like that. And to me, the star player is that business owner, and you've got to make it work for that business owner. So there's lots of parallels with it, but I think ultimately what it really is, it always comes back to that sort of storytelling. It's storytelling from a brand awareness point of view. It's storytelling about your product overview or service overview, whatever it might be. And if you can paint that picture of the business in its best form and its best light, then it's got a better chance of succeeding, certainly online. So that's how I feel it sort of parallels.
And I think what I've always loved about the making websites better model that you guys have is that it's not specifically about the website. It is.
Yeah.
But it's also about how you get people to the website. And most people would traditionally think of that as being paid media and adverts. And I know you guys do an element of that. But at the same time, there's also the consideration of how else can we do this organically or through marketing means, where it's not just paid media. And I think that's a really key differentiator for me when I think of you guys, is because that's how most businesses should be approaching it. It's all great and well having a lovely website, but you need traffic to get to that website. And there's lots of ways of generating that.
Yeah, and we started off the business in 2019, and it was one of them where we were just a website agency at the time. But we always felt that it's all very well having a pretty website. It's almost like having a pretty sports car. If you've got a Ferrari but haven't got the keys to drive it, it's not much use to you, really, is it? It might be nice to put in your garage and show your mates and stuff, but ultimately you want to drive it, you want to enjoy it. And really, digital marketing is like the keys, the fuel to get your website going. So it's not a case either of that just hoping that anyone comes to it. It's having the right traffic that is going towards it, because ultimately that website should be your salesperson. It should give you the information from a service or product or business point of view. So really, it's a case of that we're helping people to achieve their online potential. That's one of our sort of strap lines, really, is reaching your online potential. And I think it makes my job difficult from a sales point of view, that where you've got other agencies out there that are just website, that are just digital, that might also be a bit of both. But this industry isn't regulated. That's the issue that I always find, is that technically anyone could probably go onto YouTube and find out how to build a website within 2 or 3 days, or how to set up a particular marketing campaign and stuff like that. And good luck to you, fair enough. But if you want somebody who's professional, that's honest and tells you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, that's really where it's key. Because I find that, especially in certain agencies that I've worked in, it almost feels like they're taking the money and that's it. They don't really care about the particular client and their goals and objectives. And that's not the right way to be in business, in my opinion.
So you mentioned there giving constructive feedback to customers about what they are doing right and what they're doing wrong. Based on the fact that you've straddled both storytelling and conversion most of your career away from warehousing, what is it that most small businesses are getting wrong right now in terms of connecting with their audience?
I think it's just being authentic. I think there's a lot of content out there that you can just strip feed through things like ChatGPT and stuff like that. And it's a helpful tool. I'm not saying don't use it, because you should use it from a spontaneous tool type stuff. But real content comes from the heart. It comes from the mind, but it also comes from the actual business of what it's actually trying to achieve. So for me, small businesses really is more about getting yourself out there, building that kind of personal brand as well. So the way that we work with our clients is a sense of that you've got the company brand, but you've also got your personal brand, and both should be working parallel together to achieve those goals and objectives. You know, it always goes back to that sort of authentic content for me. And whether that's content on a website, whether that's content through LinkedIn, on a podcast like this, you know yourself, Paul, speaking to people that are really there telling their story and how they've come, how far they've come. That's authentic. People buy from that. You know, people buy from people they like, know and trust. That's how we see it.
Yeah, and actually we had Bob Berg, who originated that phrase, on the show a few weeks back, so he was a fantastic guest. And one of the things that really rung true for me, his co-author had said, money is an echo of value. And I just think that is so powerful, because if that's the way that you approach not just business, but your network, your audience, your personal brand, then you can't go far wrong. One of the things that I see a lot from people is, certainly entrepreneurs tend to be serial entrepreneurs a lot of the time, and they've got 2 or 3 businesses going, and they're really confused about how they approach their personal brand when they've got these 3 businesses or more around the sides that they want to promote as a result of their personal brand. Yeah. So, like, what's your advice in that sort of situation then?
I think it comes back to that team element a little bit. If you have got a particular business that we're working with that, you know, an individual that has multiple businesses that he's a part of, or she is part of, you know, it comes back to that team. You need, as a business owner, you need to trust that team that's part of that company or that service. And really, when you think about your personal brand, it's a case of filtering all of those assets that you're a part of, those businesses that you're a part of, and having a clear content strategy, having a clear marketing plan can really help to deliver that without any sort of confusion and people understanding. Because somebody might look at one business and think, that's for me, I buy product services from that business, but might not have any interest whatsoever in the other business that they're a part of. So it's trying to filter that in a marketing plan that works from a personal brand perspective. But ultimately, it's trying to cover all bases. And I know it's a lot of time and difficulty for business owners to do that on their own. So that's where we come, in a sense, to support them and it really act as their marketing team. Whether they've got a marketing team or not, we can act and be a part of that. So we like to work with them rather than working for them, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I guess one last question before we move on to some more personal conversation back end of this is, if you were working with a small business and you were able to redesign their marketing playbook from scratch, where would you start? What principle would you start at for them? What's the most important foundation to build on?
I think it just goes back to authenticity, Paul. I think that's really, for me, the founding element. You've got to be true to yourself and true to the people that you're working with. You hire people that are almost better than you because you want them to do the job that you see that's going to be fit for them, but also the benefit of the business moving forward. And I think a lot of sort of business owners, or certainly hire people in businesses, will hire people that aren't as good as them, if that makes sense. I know sometimes it's a little bit difficult when you're hiring apprentices and they need to learn and stuff like that, but ultimately, if you're looking for that proper digital marketing manager or salesperson or whatever it might be, they have to almost be better than you. Because at some point, business owners like to pull away from the business, maybe even sell the business, and it has to succeed without them. So you're only, in my opinion, you're only as good as your team. But that playbook always starts for me with authenticity and just building something honest, building something that people can really appreciate and value. And that's where it starts for me.
I think I've seen that so many times, and I'm completely in line with it. It's about being clear about why you wanted to start, not why you started the business, but what's the point of the business? What do you want to achieve with it in the future? Where's it going? What's the ultimate end goal? And that really, for a lot of people, that's really hard to figure out, and it's always evolving. But I think when you start with that single person, you almost make them synonymous with the business, and they're attached, they become the same, they're an entity together. And then to your point, at some point you need to break away. Once you've built that business as audience, their authority, their brand enough, then you can move that person away and the business no longer needs it because you built that reputation.
That's what it is, it's reputation,
yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about reputation then. Sunderland and Ipswich have crossed paths. We've passed like ships in the night this season, unfortunately for you, but fortunately for me. I'm going to let you into a little secret. I am wearing last season's away shirt underneath my Javelin hoodie, just because I love the design. I love the shirt, but I'm taking my mum out this afternoon, so we're going into Sunderland and I'll definitely be wearing it there.
Yeah.
Mark, you've had a tough season. I'm a bit gutted that we've crossed paths because we sold you Jack Clark and then you guys have gone down to Championship. I know the struggle to get back out of there. How positive are you about this season for Ipswich, mate? You coming back up?
Yeah, I think where we currently sit at the moment, obviously a few games in now, and we've just come off the back of beating Sheffield United 5-0, and this is a team in transition, and it's a team that I think hasn't always delivered, especially last season, but there's positivity there, there's ambition, I think, and that's what you want from for any football fan. You just want to believe something. You want to believe in the team that you see on that pitch. You want to believe the hierarchy that are bringing in the transfers, the hierarchy that is ultimately taking the direction of the club. And a long time, we were a club that was just in disarray. It felt like a chore supporting Ipswich Town at times. And in the last sort of few years, really, it's been a case that, we've had back-to-back promotions. We've had very successful times at the club recently. And I think it's just remembering that was a team, and that team is finally coming towards its end with players leaving. It's going again. It's building that team again, and I think people just need to be a little bit patient with it. But we've got enough quality at this level with the players that we got last season, but also some of the players that we brought in now, and I think we'll do all right. I don't think we're favourites by any stretch of the imagination. I never like to put ourselves as favourites because there's a lot of pressure with that. But if we can get in the playoffs and win the playoffs, a lot of what you guys did last year, that's the best way to go up, without a doubt. But if you don't, my word, it's depressing.
I think it is, and speaking from experience, it's the most magnificent promotion playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever see a more dramatic playoff set of games, and I really do hope you guys get up there, Mark. It would be nice to see similar photos from you as I was posting earlier this year when we come towards the end of the season. And fingers crossed that we actually play each other next season, because that's the end goal for both of us.
Yeah, do you know what? Every year, it's always a good game. It's always a competitive game. I think it's quite evenly split, to be honest, especially in the last sort of few years that I've been looking at, because obviously I've got family from Sunderland as well. So I'll often go to Sunderland and see the family, but also tie it in with an Ipswich game. So when we have been in the same league, it's always been a closely fought contest, and we've won some, you've won some, there's been a couple of draws and stuff like that. They're two clubs, and the reason why I love Sunderland, I had my stag do in Sunderland, believe it or not, is because, there's so much love just as a community. There's so much love there for the football team, but everyone you meet there is friendly. They always say hello to you, but living down where I live in Colchester, London way, if I say hello to someone, it's almost, oh, why are you saying hello to me? Yeah, almost, what do you want? Yeah. So, yeah, I love it. It feels to me like a sort of an old-fashioned, old roots type community that, just appreciates community, really, and it appreciates their football more than anything.
Fantastic. Very kind words of you, Mark, and fingers crossed. We might even cross paths in one of the cups. Don't know.
Yeah.
We've only got
Hopefully.
one cup to cross paths in now, but hey, we'll see. Mark, it's been fantastic chatting with you. I'll pop you all your contact details in the show notes below, so if anybody's had your curiosity piqued about Mark's podcast, the details will be in there along with information about making websites better. Thank you very much for coming along, being a fantastic guest, Mark.
No worries, thanks for having me. Cheers.
I'll see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us, give us a follow. We will be here next week with another fantastic guest on MarketPulse Pros and Cons. Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes, and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management. Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long-form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.